Back to election news. Ahead of the local government elections on November the 1st, an independent political and social commentator, Tebogo Khaas, has questioned whether the IEC is fulfilling its mandate. One of the things that the Independent Electoral Council should be doing is educating voters. He joins us now. Thank you very much. So you say that for an election to be considered successful and democratic, voters must understand their rights and responsibilities. Tell us a bit more.
Thanks, Janet. Yes, indeed. There's an inherent assumption that people would be better empowered to understand what the essence of voting itself and the significance of exercising that right to vote. We've seen in recent years, in fact, not in recent years, going back a few elections back, where voters would rather abstain, thinking that by abstaining, they will be hurting the very people that they are dissatisfied with, when in fact that might not necessarily be the case. Instead of understanding that if they're dissatisfied with Party A, they could very well look amongst the alternatives, which is the party that could be more deserving of their vote. And that is something that I think most political parties, especially the ANC, do take advantage of, because by withholding the vote, it means that the opposition's or alternative options are denied votes in the event that voters are dissatisfied with the ruling party or the incumbent.
And you say that this is the role of the IEC. It should really be driving this home.
Absolutely. In fact, if you look at the first elections in 1994, the IEC did a splendid job in terms of ensuring that voters are better equipped with the knowledge that is necessary for them to make the informed choices. In other words, basic things like the sanctity of the vote, the fact that the secrecy of the vote, the importance of doing the polls, which is why if you look at the 94 elections, for example, we had the highest turnout insofar as on election day. That is sort of ebbed with over the years. There's nothing strange there, because that was happened in most democracies across the world. But what is of concern is the fact that some voters still believe that if they don't vote for example, the ANC, they may very well be. They may stand the risk of losing social grants or other benefits that they may be deriving from the state, which is in fact not true. And it behoves the bodies like the IEC, which is tasked with promoting voter education, to ensure that voters understand why they should actually continue voting, and even if it means not voting for any particular party by just spoiling a vote, or inserting words to the effect like none of the above, they may very well be registering a protest vote to say the dissatisfaction with the existing options or offerings.
Which would be better, you say, than no vote at all. I hear what you say about people not voting. We know that there are more people who don't vote than there are people who vote for the top three parties, for instance. So this is a huge population. But I remember during the last local government elections, I think the people I spoke to were saying maybe we're disillusioned with the ANC, but we don't believe we have any other political home. So that seems to be a problem in South Africa that education won't fix. Do you agree?
No, absolutely, and that is the essence of my article, which is to say the IEC need to encourage people to ensure that they participate, because this is what we call a participatory democracy. And if anything, you must very well say, Party A, I'm not going to vote for Party A. I'll vote for Party B or Party C, even though they may not necessarily meet all your expectations. But it will very well send a message to your preferred party to say, look, if they don't improve, they stand to lose your vote permanently. to other parties, to other alternatives, which is not the case currently.
And do you believe that the IEC can do this education without coming across as biased in any way or punting opposition parties in any way?
Look, Section 5K of the Electoral Act does codify it to the extent that the IEC is empowered or it is expected to conduct voter education. And the IEC ought to, as it is expected of it, to do this in an environment that doesn't favor any particular party. In other words, it has to be seen to be politically agnostic and be able to sensitize or to educate the population of the voters without specifically being seen to be favoring one particular party or one ideology over the other.
Yeah.
And the IEC is capable of doing that. And it is already doing it to some extent, but it is just not doing voter education to the extent that it ought to be. It is doing certain aspects of voter education, but not to the extent that it needs to be able to drive a message to individual voters that a particular political party doesn't own your vote or doesn't own you. Just as we've seen with taxi drivers, they think they own the commuters. So it might very well be that in the minds of the commuters, they think maybe particular parties own their vote. And if they are not, if they're dissatisfied with that party, the best way is just not to turn out, which is not what it is envisaged by our constitution.
All right, thank you very much. A fascinating perspective, saying that the IEC should be doing a little bit more there. Political and social commentator Tebogo Khaas.